What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the Season 4 premiere of The Boys. The first 3 episodes dropped today, and if you've not yet seen those episodes, bail out on this video because there will be spoilers. But if you want my general thoughts right out of the gate without any real specificity, I'll say that The Boys remains one of the only franchises that is still worth watching in the superhero genre right now, and it remains superior to most of the superhero movies being made by Warner Brothers, Disney, and Sony. But... Here comes some criticisms. If you don't want to hear some criticisms, also bail out now. But I think the show is starting to show some signs that it is running out of gas. Like the shock value is no longer that shocking. The political satire, it's pretty tame, pretty cautious. And the story construction and just the writing overall leaves a lot to be desired. There are far too many characters in this show embroiled in these like subpar side plots that really hurt the pacing and momentum of the show because we're 3 hours deep into this season, and I would struggle to remember much of what happened if I hadn't been writing it down as it transpired in front of me. So in short, and I'm sad to say this, I think The Boys is starting to feel diluted, starting to feel directionless, but I'll continue to watch, hoping for the best. Amazon's already announced that the show is going to end with Season 5, so I'll stick with it because I think Season 3 was absolutely incredible. They have a lot of credit in the bank with me, but I worry that Amazon's going to continue to beat this horse in the years to come. Long after the official flagship show ends, they're going to continue cranking out more shows like Gen V. And I know a lot of people out there really like Gen V, but I thought it was a pale shade in comparison to Season 3 of The Boys. So if you want more Boys in your future, I think Amazon is going to provide it. But I think the golden age of this show is probably already in the rearview mirror. And if you're wondering why I'm not so hot on Gen V, I felt like Gen V was starting to feel a lot like an R-rated version of a CW show. And when I say something feels like a CW show, I don't mean it as a compliment, but you have a lot of kind of bland, interchangeable, like late teens and early 20-somethings who all kind of act the same and talk the same. And every once in a while there'd be some gore, something shocking would happen, but it was never that shocking. I feel like both Gen V as well as now Season 4 of The Boys, they're giving us a version of shocking that's a safe version of shocking. It's fake shocking. Like you have these sloppy digital effects that don't fool anybody. But for me, if you're going to shock somebody, well, then you need to show them something that's going to upset them. Like you need to actually stir up some controversy. This show is starting to feel like they've got like some very safe guidelines that have been provided by Amazon. So like as long as you don't stray outside of these lines, you can do whatever you want. But I would love to see The Boys do something like actually making fun of a giant streamer like Amazon, something I feel like they would have been more willing to do in some of the past seasons. Like a willingness to bite the hand that feeds them would show that at least the writers on this show still have the courage of their convictions when it comes to being a full-blown, proper satire of everything going on in society today. And for me, safe shocking is just not that entertaining. It's not that alluring. It's not that exciting. Like, give me something to kind of sink my teeth into, to get stimulated by. Like, safe shocking to me, it's almost like being invited to play strip poker with your grandmother or being asked to, like, take your sister to the prom. Like, yes, it's kind of shocking and something that people don't want to do, but it's not entertaining, it's not humorous, it's not sexy, it's not arousing. Like, give me some real shock value that we can say, oh my fucking God, did you see that shit over the weekend? It was fucking incredible. That's what I mean by real shocking. I mean, after these last 3 episodes, you're not going to see anybody going online saying like, The Boys has gone too far or The Boys has crossed one line too many. But I feel like that is the essence of The Boys. And I feel like when you're exploring any form of satire, you have to be willing to cross every ethical boundary that exists on the planet. Like there's no sacred cow that you won't just, happily murder right before everybody's eyes. And in past seasons, I feel like one of the best qualities of The Boys was that they were willing to satirize or ridicule or skewer or just make fun of just about anybody. And there's still some of that going on in this show. Like, I mean, the show, I'm not like hitting like the emergency button and saying that we're in crisis mode yet, but it's just starting to feel like very corporate approved content, and that is the death of something that originally was as shocking and provocative as The Boys, especially the comic. Like if you look at the tone of Garth Ennis' original comic, I mean, none of that stuff has ever made it into the show. I feel like as much as people love the show, it's never fully satisfied like my craving for what it could become if they were willing to just throw all caution to the wind. And if you're wondering why I hold Garth Ennis in such high regard, I've actually set aside some of my trade paperbacks of some of his comics. These are some of his issues of The Punisher and Crossed and what else we got in here? We got Fury, we got Hitman. Anyway, we got a bunch of good stuff here. And obviously we've got all of Preacher. yet another show which didn't come within a country mile of actually adapting like the heart and soul and the tone and the spirit of the original comic. And I think The Boys season 4 is better than the crummy version of Preacher that we saw on TV, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But yeah, for whatever reason, Garth Ennis, he's just, no one's ever found a way to capture his voice and translate it into film and television, although I'm thrilled that he's getting all these paydays with all of his comics getting adapted. But if you're wondering why I'm not showing off any individual issues of The Boys, I actually bought those as standalone issues, so they're buried in my long boxes, and it basically would have required like a half hour of heavy lifting to dig those fuckers out. But long story short, I really enjoy Garth Ennis' style of storytelling. And I feel like this show, when it's at its best, is usually when it's trying to recapture what made the comic appealing in the first place. But getting back to this idea of fake shocking versus real shocking, I feel like shocking is when something surprises you and takes you out of your comfort zone. Where you're like, oh my fucking God, or like you're covering your kids' eyes, or you're covering their ears, or you're going online and complaining about how the show's become truly depraved and disgusting. Like, The Boys needs to have those moments. And probably the most shocking moment, and once again, spoilers, but the most shocking moment, and like safe shocking, was in episode 2 where this guy with the power to clone himself, they see him in some sauna he's like lined up in a row. He's basically like formed his own human centipede, eating his own ass over and over and over again. And the one on the end is jacking off to a picture of the character of Firecracker. And I don't even think my pulse changed. Like, I didn't even react. I didn't say like, oh, I mean, I was just like, oh, this is just business as usual. Like, at this point, nobody is shocked by the sight of somebody's butt cheeks, and definitely nobody is shocked by the sight of a limp little flaccid penis. There's nothing less shocking than a limp flaccid penis. If you want to show us like something that's actually going to shock us, let all those clones have like a raging erection and just be fucking the shit out of each other. Like, that would have been shocking. That would have been provocative. Or if you really wanted to get shocked, like just something off the top of my head, like have a scene where Homelander's like titty fucking Firecracker and comes in her face and wipes his dick off in her hair, like that would be shocking. And if you're reacting like, oh my God, like why are you being so disgusting? Why are you talking like this? Because that is the tone and style of the original comic. And so that is the difference to me between safe shocking and real shocking. Real shocking provokes outrage. It provokes a response. And nothing that I've seen so far this season makes me inclined to believe that we're going to see anything shocking for the rest of the season. But the show still has its moments, and the show still has its characters that I take an interest in. So even if I find a lot of the characters to be agonizingly boring, like Huey and Starlight, they might be the two most boring characters in contemporary television. And in this season, they are even more boring than they were in the previous season. Actually, in season 3, I feel like they did a little bit in trying to make Huey seem a little more interesting, a little bit more of a risk taker. He has completely retreated back into his mommy's womb, quite literally, as he wrestles with all of his mommy issues this season. But Huey, this is I've never liked Huey, but I feel like this is his worst season so far. Starlight, she's just kind of bland and forgettable. But Homelander remains interesting. He's maybe not as hilarious as he was like in some of the past seasons, but at least he's kind of crazy and dangerous and unpredictable, and you never know who might get cut in half by one of his heat rays. But I must admit, I am enjoying Sister Sage. She's a new character where her power is that she's the smartest person on the planet. And what I like about her is I can't figure out like what are her goals, what's her agenda. She's very bright and she's very crafty in terms of like playing people off one another, but I'm not entirely sure what her ultimate goal is. And it seems like in the context of the show for the time being, she is at least pretending to be on Homelander's agenda, where they're basically going to try and like allow super beings to come out of the closet, be politicians, basically run society, because human beings are basically like animals in their opinion, or toys as he likes to describe them. And I wouldn't say that I completely trust Sister Sage to be like, Homelander's like closest friend and ally moving forward. But I do like their dynamic because Homelander wants to be challenged. He's tired of everybody just agreeing with him all the time, saying everything he says is like, perfectly right or perfectly brilliant. He wants somebody who's going to kind of challenge his authority and that sort of thing. And I think the actress that they hired to play Sister Sage, she's a good actress, and they've been giving her a lot of good lines of dialogue. And I think her new love affair that she's developing with the Deep is going to give us some interesting comedy. The Deep is one of the characters who remains very funny in this show. I think he's absolutely hysterical. And the character of Ashley Barrett is fucking hysterical as well. And along those lines, she and the Deep have a great scene in episode 1 where she accuses the Deep of being a chauvinist prick, but in the next breath, she refers to a woman as a sweaty cum rag. And I'm like, all right, this is the kind of satire that the show needs to embrace, where like somebody, I guess, where the show points out the hypocrisies of our time, where somebody who's in a position of power like Ashley Barrett would accuse somebody of being a misogynist, but at the same time using language and embracing attitudes that are the very same attitudes that she is criticizing in another person. Like, that's when The Boys is really firing on all cylinders. And we get some more of that humor in episode 2, where we see a behind-the-scenes look at this film that's being made, where like they're exploring the origins of A-Train, and the director at one point makes some condescending reference to some of the sensitivity readers that are on the payroll. And I feel like, yes, thank you. Like, finally, shows and movies are starting to make fun of some of these people who, in my opinion, contribute nothing to the art of entertainment. If anything, they contribute to whatever is the inverse and opposite, like, what is the opposite of entertainment? I guess preachy lectures or propaganda, whatever the case might be. But I feel like sensitivity readers, whether you're talking about the world of publishing or movies or television, are there to pull everything out of the story that actually might be interesting to people and replace it with kind of bland, flavorless platitudes and that sort of thing. But at least this show's willing to poke fun at this new job description that basically means I'm the world's biggest buzzkill, and I'm here to make sure that nobody has fun watching the shows or movies that I work on. But getting back to some of the flaws of the show, I don't know what their deal is, but they need to take their foot off the brakes. Like I said, 3 hours deep, and nothing has really happened. Like the original Godfather film, they told their entire story in less than 3 hours. I feel like with 3 hours, you should be able to do like the Iliad, or you should be able to do Hamlet. You should be able to do like, big, giant, complex stories. But it's like, what are you waiting for? We only have a few more episodes of season 4, and then we have one season of season 5. But it's time to start building towards a big, huge, giant, epic fucking climax. And it just feels like they're almost kind of killing time, and like they're worried about taking any risks that might destroy or damage the popularity of one of the most popular shows on Amazon. And it took a long time for Amazon, or I guess for the viewers on Amazon, to kind of catch up with the show. Remember, like season 1, people liked it, but like the fan base wasn't that big. But with each subsequent season, the fan base got larger and larger. I'm sure Amazon is like terrified that like their moneymaker, at least as far as like Prime Video is concerned, that it all might be coming to an end. But I feel like they really need to start delivering those water cooler moments where somebody goes into work on Monday and says, "Oh my God, did you see the latest episode of The Boys? Like that was fucking crazy." And I feel like season 3 had a few of those episodes where they were hilarious and the combat was incredible and the sex was outrageous. And I just don't know what has happened between season 3 and season 4. Maybe they're saving the best stuff for later episodes, but I feel like when you make a season premiere, front load it with some really good stuff to get people talking. And I'm sorry, Homelander's ongoing tensions and struggles, like bonding with his son Ryan, they're just not going to cut it. And also, I have to say, when it comes to the character of Ryan, y'all tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, but they're clearly doing something to his voice, trying to make it appear as if he's still a 12-year-old kid, even though the actor is obviously getting older. And obviously, everybody goes through puberty at a certain point. And I remember doing a musical back in 6th or 7th grade, where one kid's voice changed like right in the middle of a performance, and he couldn't sing like the rest of the songs that he was used to singing in the show, and it was very embarrassing to him. But the reality is your voice cracks at a certain point, you no longer sound the same. But it almost feels like they went through with like a digital filter and tried to like raise the pitch of his voice and make him still sound like he's a 12-year-old kid, even though he's taller and obviously more mature. But it makes it incredibly distracting. Like there wasn't a single scene between Ryan and Butcher, or a single scene between Ryan and Homelander, where I could actually focus on the drama at hand, because his voice just sounded so goddamn weird. And that just feels like an unforced error that the show has just stumbled into on purpose. And it's like, just let the kid use his normal voice.
But you know how dangerous Homelander is.
He's my dad.
Right, he murdered some poor sod right in front of your eyes.
That guy was a pedophile.
But maybe I was a little too harsh on the character of Starlight earlier. I still think that she is one of the most boring parts of the show, at least historically she has been. But at least in episode 3, we had one really interesting scene where she and Firecracker are facing off, and Firecracker basically, calls attention to some of Starlight's behavior in the past, which implies that maybe Starlight has not always been as pure as the driven snow as she likes to pretend to believe, or likes to pretend to be. And she talks about how there was some sort of a beauty pageant that they were participating in when they were 13 years old, and that Starlight spread the rumor that Firecracker had been having like some sort of like ass sex gangbang with all the judges in order to win the contest. And she also called her a fat slut in any event. Firecracker is confident she never recovered, and she's always had a vendetta against Starlight ever since. So hopefully we'll see a knockdown, drag-out brawl between the two of them at some point. But it seems like all roads are pointing toward the character of Ryan slowly but surely being kind of recruited by Butcher and groomed for the boys in order to be, their big powerhouse that's going to finally have the power and the strength to take out the Homelander. And the Homelander, showing some signs of age. He's been collecting all of his gray pubes in a jar, and as he was doing that, I was like, is he going to use those pubes to like create like a super being or clone himself or anything like that, or is he just that vain where he feels compelled to collect all of his gray pubes? But yeah, sorry Homelander, you might be strong enough to knock over a skyscraper, but you are aging. And maybe there'll come a point where the Homelander's power starts to diminish due to age, and Ryan's power will continue to rise, and they will finally, kill each other in some horrific, bloody conflict. But the show's going to need to deliver something really memorable and really shocking because it's got quite a reputation to live up to. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 were an absolute fucking blast, and I'd have to say that season 4 so far, it's just feeling cautious and slow and safe and boring, everything that The Boys should never be. And for me, one of the biggest ongoing problems that this show really seems to be struggling to figure out, what do we do with the characters of Mother's Milk and Frenchie and Kimiko, because they've been at the heart and soul and at the core of The Boys from day one. But it's like by season 4, you should know what to do with these characters. Like it shouldn't feel like you're grasping at straws, making up new shit for them each season. Like they're the core of the story. Like they, alongside Huey and Butcher, should always be like the main attraction of this show. But there's so many writers on this show who almost seem to be like at odds with the other writers on the show. Like some of the writers really seem to get the humor and the shock value and the action. And it's like, this is a superhero concept on steroids, doing things that you will never see in a Marvel movie or a DC movie or anything along those lines. But then there are other writers in the show where it seems like they don't even really get the joke or the concept of The Boys in the first place. Like The Boys is supposed to be a satire on like all society, like a plague in all your houses. You're all ridiculous. You're all insane. You're all completely over the top. Like you deserve each other, kill each other, and we're going to laugh at your expense. But it seems like some of the writers on this show view it as an opportunity to kind of share and push their own personal propaganda. And I'm sorry, the moment you're pushing for propaganda as opposed to trying to tell an entertaining story, even if people agree with your propaganda, they're going to be annoyed and kind of tune out. And it just seems like some of the political commentary is so on the nose and so obvious, it comes across as kind of like clumsy and heavy-handed. And once again, I feel like the default position on The Boys should always just be, all of you are ridiculous and insane and stupid and ignorant, and hopefully everybody will just die in a huge bloody conflict, and then the boys will walk away victorious. But I have no idea what conclusion they might be building toward, but this is the first season where I've started to lose confidence and lose hope that the season or the show will end in a really, really strong way. Because, like I said before, season 3 was just that goddamn good. Perhaps it's set up unrealistic expectations moving forward. In any event, I think I've said all I have to say. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Am I being too harsh, or some of you out there are also starting to notice some of these worrying signs or trends in the show? I mean, nothing lasts forever. Marvel used to be better. Star Wars used to be better. Star Trek used to be better. Lord of the Rings used to be better. Like, nothing lasts forever, and The Boys is a very good chance of season 5. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the weakest of all 5 seasons. I will continue to watch, hoping for the best, but I'm preparing for the worst, and that these first 3 episodes just didn't leave a very favorable impression on me. But maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe I'm just being a mean, bitter old bastard, and maybe everybody else out there is absolutely loving it to pieces. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. But if you've made it this far, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. Even if you totally disagree with everything I had to say, hopefully I didn't come across as too unreasonable, and you'll come back for more with more commentary. Because on Sunday, I will be doing a review of the Season 2 premiere of House of the Dragon, and I'm intensely fired up for that. So, yeah, stay tuned for some House of the Dragon on this channel in the not-so-distant future. But thanks again for listening. I greatly appreciate it, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.